It is the Tile Happy Hour, Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock in the p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know where you are, but I'm right here, and we are here to get excited and talk about the tile industry. The tile industry is fun for those who love it, and I am one of those who so love the industry and what's going on in the world today, and whether that is with installation procedures, manufacturing, distribution, people not showing up for work, whatever. This is your show, tile industry. This is the place where you can come and gripe and somebody will listen. We may not agree, but somebody will listen. I'm by myself again. John Tedesco. Where in the world is John Tedesco? We ask that question often, but he is off on assignment tonight. And I've got a very special guest. But first, I want to get some stuff out of the way. If you're watching live, it's your show. You heard me. I'm the one that's talking right now. But all you have to do is comment. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, snail mail, I don't know where you're watching. But drop a note in the comments, and I can see them and I can pull up what's going on. Thanks, Lou, for jumping in. Let me know where you're watching from. It is your show. What we're going to talk about. Today's topic is broad. It is broad like a linebacker. That's what I'm saying. But it has to do with perspective. And even if you're watching on a replay, that's your perspective. I'm not live right now. You're listening to me in the future. And the great thing about the future is I still can get your comments and I want to see them. So hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything. But let's get to the conversation about perspective. And I got a special treat for you today. One of my good friends that I've known almost as long as I have been in the tile industry, and his name is Keith Stevens, and he and I worked together for a short time, but for many times we've been on different sides of the coin, whether being in contracting or being a vendor. And I'm going to welcome Keith to the program tonight. Keith, thanks for joining in. Thanks for jumping in and being our super secret co-host. And we'll send you John's paycheck.
Oh, thank you. I could really use that right now. I appreciate it. I'm flattered to be here. I appreciate the invite, and I look forward to just nerding out about some tile.
Yeah. We'll nerd about tile, but it is a happy hour, and I got from good thing that you got. Cheers, and all those out there. Cheers.
Yes, sir.
So Keith. I'm gonna give everybody a little quick jump start into you and I's relationship. Well, we met probably a little bit before you and I started working together at a contracting company, and that was through a good friend of ours, Mike Howard, which I haven't talked to in forever, but I know you and he worked together, and then you and I worked together, and so am I right? Is that when we met?
Yeah, I believe so. Now I did work in a like a warehouse situation, 20 years ago, and we may have crossed paths then. And then
right.
Mike actually offered me a job at a commercial contracting company, and he's
you were
actually
the enemy.
One of my. Yes.
Yeah, we were bidding against each other.
No, you were the big enemy. We were just small potatoes, but Mike is one of my mentors, and love that guy.
Mike Howard. If you get wind of this, you've influenced, I think, Keith a lot and me, both of us, and I miss working with that dude. We ate many lunches together. I liked Mike Howard liked to eat lunch, and that was one thing we did when we worked together at the contracting company. We did eat lunch a lot, which is, in the tile industry, lunch is part of it. I mean, you gotta eat.
Donuts and Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. I carry on the Taco Tuesday tradition most weeks at the Cahoon household.
Nice.
But what I thought when John couldn't make it, you were probably 20th on the list. No, I'm joking.
That's okay.
No, I thought of you because I'm working on something. Shout out to my Tile Bar folks. Sales Summit coming up this Sunday. I'm speaking on Monday with another good friend of ours, Brandon Kirkland, and we're talking about different parts of a project and different people involved. And when I started thinking about that and trying to prepare for that, I started thinking about perspectives, and I thought to myself, self, Keith Stevens is probably the closest person I know that has different perspectives in the industry. And I don't want to say it's not necessarily your longevity, but you weren't crazy like I was, and you didn't stay at a company for 15 years. You advanced and went to different aspects of the tile industry. So I thought, as we talked about perspective, you could add perspective.
Yeah, well, for sure. You're right. I've been in quite a few different sectors of the industry, which I think is really great because I lean on those experiences and what I was taught at each one of those companies
Yeah.
on how to utilize that in what I do now. So you're right, from the contracting industry to the distribution industry to now the factory industry. I have that perspective, whether it's talking to a designer or a contractor, a general contractor, an end user, whoever it may be, based on that experience that I had.
And I think, the majority of my career was in contracting, and I didn't realize how narrowly focused that can get you until you step out of it. And I stepped out of it on purpose. I didn't get fired. But I stepped out of it, and then I did my own thing. And then, working for a multi-million-dollar contractor and then going to working by yourself, that's a change in perspective. But yeah. It's still, you're seeing the same problems. And you talk about looking at a Rubik's Cube. You hold it up. What color is this? Well, you see the white, but I see the black. And I was still looking at it from a different scale, but yet still seeing the same things. And I thought when you moved away from the contracting industry into the, I think at that point you were an ARC rep and working for a distributor, I was like, well, now he knows what I know. Are we gonna see eye to eye, or are things going to change? And I'll be honest, I think your perspective changed and mine stayed the same. Not saying one is right or wrong.
Yeah, and it may have. And sometimes that's a double-edged sword, just like anything, where, yeah, I had that experience, and it was a good thing on some ends, where obviously when I was in the distribution role or the contracting sales rep or an A&D rep, I think a lot of the people that I was calling on, they knew they couldn't get away with a lot of the things. You
knew the tricks, huh?
Yeah. I knew exactly what they were doing. And often that was bad though, too, because, I gained a little bit of arrogancy, and often I would call them out. I'm just that kind of a person. Not that it was to be negative, but I knew exactly what they were trying to do. But yeah, that perspective from knowing, like your side on the contracting side, like we talked about, there is no better experience that I have that I gained from that, or from being in that distribution role. And I really wish that more people could have those experiences, whatever industry you're in.
Right.
So you can be in somebody's shoes when you're calling on them to understand what they're going through. And kudos to anybody. Nothing bad with anybody who stays in the same company, the same role, the same industry for their entire life. I think that's pretty amazing. I just choose, or have chosen, to do things a little bit differently and try to move up. And that's just for me personally.
And I 100% agree with everything you said. I will let Lou jump in here. I think Lou's worried we're going to be drinking and laying tile. No tile laying tonight, Lou. I appreciate the concern. There's going to be no punch list tomorrow. One thing I will say about that, and I agree with you, longevity in a company is to be admired. I agree.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I think the danger of longevity in a company is the tunnel vision.
Yes.
I remember when I was working as a contractor, and like you said, we're kind of the biggest and the best, and I thought of your company as, well, I got to beat them. They're the enemy.
Yep.
And the more I grew up, let's be honest, the more I grew up, um, I, everybody's working to benefit their company and themselves, and as long as you're honorable in what you're doing, I think there's great advantage in learning all sides of the business, even if you're not in it, and
Yes.
walking in your shoes, and even kind of, let's say, developing the relationship, because that's where kind of I want to go, especially tile bar folks. We're going to go on Monday, is forming relationships, because those relationships help you see and empathize with the other perspectives.
Absolutely. If you have those relationships with those people, the last thing you want is a bad relationship, because they're not going to send you an email or pick up the phone. They're not going to respect you, maybe, but
Right.
100% the relationship.
Rosemary says perspective is subjective depending on who you ask. And
Absolutely.
absolutely, I love that, Rosemary. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, let's kind of talk some specifics. In the world of the tile industry, I'd love to pick your brain on a couple of things.
Okay.
I'm going to speak from the kind of the couple of positions I've been in, and you tell me your perspective on it. So where you are right now, you are a factory rep. Is that? I know you yelled at me the
In
other
a
day.
sense, yes. I work for a manufacturer. I work for the largest group in the country.
Right.
We have a lot of parts and pieces, but yes, I work for a factory and a company that self-distributes as well as the
Okay.
overall
So yeah, you
picture
can
in
kind
some
of speak
sense.
for both of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, let's
there's a lot
ask
of that.
this question. As I think I've got probably a lot of tile contractor friends. Shout out to Tom Holt in Florida, and all those others that we know well. If you were to say one thing that a contractor should know about the factory, about the manufacturing process, maybe it's a best case scenario, or it's a if you only knew this, you wouldn't say this. What would be the kind of your trigger for that? Speaking from a factory.
I mean, it may be one or two things, but I think
Okay.
the thing that comes to mind the most is understanding that factories make a lot more tile than you have any idea about every single
Mm-hmm.
day of the year. So when you're looking for a product, or you're waiting maybe a little too long to order that material than you should have, a factory
That
is
would
not.
never happen.
No. A factory is not an easy bake oven,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that might go with my shirt.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
but
Because you're a Barbie
that.
girl living in a Barbie world. Is
Hey,
that what I'm hearing you say?
I'm on point today
That's right. You're yes.
with my
Yep.
color choice.
There you go.
Um, going again, is a factory makes millions of square feet of tile. Some factories make millions and millions every year. And what a contractor thinks is, well, this is my project. I need 10,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
You said you had that a week ago. Why is it not there today?
Yeah.
Well, I could sell that. Our company could sell that in an hour. We could have an
Right.
order for it right now. So it's no different than, oh, that was on Amazon last week. Why is it gone? Our job is to make tile every day and to sell tile every day. So it's just, if they could understand how much tile we make and how many people buy tile across the entire United States, and then they may have a little better understanding of
Okay.
Okay, I need to get my order in
what I
there.
think you're getting at, and you're being very kind. So I'll say it. What you're saying is we're not your only customer, or the contractor is not your only customer. That project that has that PO, even though you think that $10,000 PO is the most important thing in your world,
Yes, and
it
it
is
is.
important to you, but yet it falls under a much bigger umbrella. And not saying it's getting lost in the shuffle, but yet
Yes.
it is a small part of a really large pie.
Yeah, it's again, they would have no clue. 10,000 square feet to a factory, not to say that it's nothing, is literally nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
because
that's on average. Do you know what the production rates are in just one building? And I know you have multiple factories
let's
under your
say
umbrella.
one factory. I mean, the way to look at it is we run, let's say, 40 to 60,000 square feet of every color in every size when we produce a run.
Uh-huh.
So if we're making roughly annually in one factory, let's say we have capacity of 120 million square feet a year. If you divide that out by days, whatever the
That's 12
capacity
million a
is every
month
single
if you do it by
day.
month.
Yeah. So then if you divide that by
I
30,
can't do that in my head. Don't ask.
yeah,
Let
it's
me
like
here. Let me figure
400,000
that out
or
for you. Let me do
yeah,
that math for you.
whatever the production is every day. And every factory is different. Um, but 10,000 square feet. And what I try to use as an analogy or something different, if imagine that I work for Anheuser-Busch and what
Okay.
you're doing is you're trying to order one single bottle of beer
Right.
and we're making millions of bottles of beer. And,
Once
yes,
again,
it's
bring it around to current events.
exactly.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah,
Well, uh, I took a class today and I encourage everybody continue to learn. No matter what you do, this podcast, that's what I'm about is continue to learn. That's what I do every day is teach. I took a class today and I was reminded again about standards, and Lou just pointed that out.
yeah.
That the factory's standards on the tile they sell supersede TCNA's recommendations.
Well, if you think about this, we make porcelain. Let's say we make porcelain tile.
Uh-huh.
You're not going to be able to hurt that porcelain tile if
Nope.
it's installed. So TCNA, and he's 100% correct, is if you get involved with everybody who is willing to help you, you have the setting material manufacturers, the tile manufacturers, everybody is a team that wants to help you, even the distributor rep, whether it's an architectural rep or a contractor rep. All of those people want that job to be amazing and to succeed. So that architect will specify another project, or that builder will select tile over some silly material like LVT
Right.
or LVP.
I like what you just said, and I want to go jump back to that and reiterate that. And you don't even know you said it, but you said we want that project to succeed, and that I think some people in our industry lose focus on that. Not only does the contractor at the very end of the job want to turn over a quality project, but even as you back that up to the distributors, the setting material manufacturer, the all the way back up to the factory point of view, they want to produce a product that can be installed easily, simply, and as advertised, so that that project goes well. I think a lot of times, you guys out there in internet world, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of times we see some distributors and factories as adversaries. I got to fight with you to get what I need. And I don't think that's the case. I think that is a matter of, and you correct me if I'm wrong, personalities and possibly egos getting in the way.
Yeah, it could be for sure, where you have someone doing a job and they're trying to keep their job, and someone doing another job and they're trying to, let's say, whether it's make a profit margin a little better or
Right.
something. But yeah, all of us want the project to succeed. 100%. And even if you're competitors, it should be good competition, not bad competition.
Right.
And you
Right.
shouldn't be fighting each other. Well, yes, I know you specified this project, but the GC is asking me to value engineer it. It's, you all want to be one happy, cohesive team to make the project a success. So you get another job, or we get more tile specified over carpet or LVT or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I think, and when I was with a, a a contractor who did both carpet, vinyl, and tile, I still mainly stayed in the tile world of that. But I saw a completely different relationship between designers and carpet reps and our salespeople. Um, that that the tile industry didn't see, and what I was jealous of is the carpet margins are 4 to 5 times what tile margins are. And I really believe, and I have no data to back this up, so call me out a liar or whatever. I believe it was because the carpet reps and the people who sold and installed carpet did a better job of managing the expectations of the designers to the GCs to the subs, and they held their specifications and they held their margins. Do you think I'm telling us a true story?
No, I've seen that a lot as well. And I don't know if it's to do with, okay, if you look at tile, we have thousands and thousands of different parts and pieces and colors and sizes. Obviously, carpet can do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Evidently Tom has ruined some commissions, Tom. Gosh.
I just went dark.
Yeah, and I think that keeping that relationship going and keeping those people talking and holding the spec and carpet, you resell carpet a whole lot more than you resell tile. So in my opinion, just thinking about it logically, tile should have a higher profit margin, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a dog eat dog world in tile. I don't know why. I don't know if there's just far more subcontractors. But if you think about it too, we have other countries with tile.
Sure.
So we have a lot of companies, factories in Europe, factories in Asia, Brazil, Spain, and all of those countries are bringing tile here. So then, in the US, you have manufacturers producing soft goods, whether it's, the big, huge companies like Mohawk, Shaw, those companies, and it's made in the USA product. They have their own people and they have relationships with their dealers. So I'm wondering if it's just far fewer parts and pieces.
I mean, I know there's technology.
The nature of contractors.
Yeah, I don't know. Lou brought up something that I want you to speak to, and I tried to read it quickly, but I think what he's saying is, what about a design firm that specs a product and the GC or the TC, which is tile contractor, VE it, and don't notify the distributor's rep who spec'd it, let the design firm know, and the portfolio gets out the window. How many times has that happened in your career?
I mean, it happens for sure, and it's happened a few times, no doubt. It's very upsetting, and I think I understand all sides of that because that's my perspective.
Yeah.
So what you have is when I was an A&D rep, the biggest thing, you spend a lot of time and your company spends a lot of money and effort trying to get one single specification from a firm on a project. And you might be working on that job 2 years before it ever even goes out for budget or bid. So you do all that work and you continuously do that. You're building your portfolio. And then you have that job go out for bid. And then you have a tile contractor who goes behind you and somehow gets that project switched. You find out about it after it's a little too late. And it ruins your day. I mean, that's your money. That's how you feed your family. But now I also have that other perspective as that tile contractor, where there could have been another side to that story where, not to say anything bad, but maybe that architectural rep working with that design firm should have given them a little bit more information as to a realistic budget for
Yeah,
that material on their
written the
project.
specifications more clearly. I used to talk about how to write specifications correctly. And I've spent some times with architects and designers. I said, you can't leave it gray. If you leave it gray, and I'm not speaking because I'm going to lose, because yeah, I'll be honest, I'm going to lose. If you leave it gray, I'm going to lose, but you're going to lose too, because then you're going to have to fight for the design because you didn't put in what you really wanted. You got to be specific. And that's why I would ask them, hey, let me write the spec for you. I'll do it for you. It'll cover all your bases. I'm not going to write my product into it. I'll write it however you want to, but at least I know. And I was more concerned about the systems, because there's not only the design of the tile, which is critical, but when you start designing systems and you specify the wrong thin set to go somewhere or the wrong waterproofing, you've got a whole barrel of monkeys that nobody can keep in. And so specificity is so critical at the very front of the project.
It's critical, but it's sad. Most firms don't give a distributor or somebody that freedom. If you have someone who can do that, like you could do that. I give you a prime example. We keep talking about perspective. One of the most solid projects I ever worked on was 2 renovations at Virginia Tech University. Okay. And they were renovating dorm rooms. And I don't know, I guess I'm allowed to say, but Colley Architecture at Virginia Tech was the firm on that job. And these are summer renovations where they do it as soon as students leave.
Tough job.
They're mobilizing the next day. So we worked with them, specifying the material. And amazingly, Virginia Tech wanted the highest end setting system you could get, period. So what they did is I asked them, I said, if I could write the specification for you, I promise you get what you want, 100%. Right. So they allowed me to write the tile spec, and I wrote it for the material that they wanted coming from us. And I wrote it for the setting system, was a complete full lifetime system warranty from a manufacturer that there's not many that can do that. But I was able to write it not as a no.
It wasn't Latticrete. Okay, sorry.
It was Tech.
Okay.
So he's top notch everything on the project.
Sure.
But I was able to write it as a performance spec in a not necessarily proprietary, but it was. And there was no exceptions for alternates on the tile material because it was that fast of a renovation. They just didn't have time.
They didn't have time to argue about it. Yeah.
No, not at all. And we went through that and we did the project. And it's amazing to have that teamwork and have an architect trust you to do it. But if more would do that, nobody could get away with anything. I wrote that spec so solid. I don't care what tile contractor could do it. And it would have been fine if they would have submitted something like a Latticrete setting materials if they met the performance spec on that.
Right.
Which that's perfectly fine.
And Tom loves Latticrete. I think that is a perspective that a lot of salespeople or architectural reps, I in the contract industry, we just call them all salespeople. Just a bunch of salespeople, but architectural reps and national account reps. I think that is one of those things that there's a two-edged sword to that relationship. And we briefly talked about it earlier today. The one part of it is I had an architect and designer really close here that I got several jobs with because she was the lead, and her lead, she was the lead, not the lead architect, but the lead interiors, and then their lead designer. I spent a lot of time with them. We went to Sluter training together. We did this together. We did that together. They trusted me. And the thing that I offered them is when they had issues with projects that weren't mine, they would call me. So I knew that when the opportunity came, I'm designing this project. Nobody knows about it yet. Don't say anything. It's not in Triangle Business Journal yet. Don't say anything. That was my chance to say, okay, let me write the spec for you. And And I was able to do that for a couple of thin gauge porcelain jobs this was very early on in thin gauge porcelain over existing tile, and actually did one that was 3 millimeters, which is not even heard of today. But I was able to write that spec because of relationship. And my
Yeah.
question to you is, how often have you had a relationship like that and lost it because of ego, or I've got this wrapped up, nobody can take it from me? And it gets, that's at the very front of the project, and it gets way down the line and it's gone out of control, and maybe you didn't sell the project down the line. You just kind of put it on cruise control because you spent so much time up front.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very much when you do that. And again, anybody who lets you get highly involved with a project, you're not going to want to spend that time if there's even a chance of losing the job.
Yeah.
But there was times for sure when you're working on a project with, let's say, a specific firm. Let's say they're a high-end firm where nobody switches their jobs.
Yeah.
And you go in with a super high-end material because it's that firm, and then you say, well, I don't care, I'm going to get that job, and then you lose it. That's happened a few times for sure, and I'm sure hundreds of times for people all over the country.
Yeah.
But again, that perspective of there could be another reason why that happened.
Well, it happened, that exact project I was able to write the spec on, and I don't think there's any secret in it. It was with LS3P, and it was their headquarters building downtown Raleigh. Originally, it was 8,000 feet of floor tile and about 9,000 feet of vertical. And I remember I was so excited. It was 18,000 feet of thin gauge porcelain, really complicated schedule. The profit margins were really great, but the design process lost out. The owner wanted glass walls. And I remember thinking, I did all this work and I lost more than half of the project. Now, I still got a 9,000 square foot job, or 8,000, whatever it was. So I was thankful for that. But yet, losing that other part after doing all that work, and I did everything I could, and it really came down to the owner saying, I want this material over that material. There's nothing I could have done.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's not. And you have to keep doing your job because you can't get upset at somebody. You have to keep doing job. And really, I wanted to go back to something that you said just a minute ago when you were talking about relationships and someone picking up the phone and calling you. That was one of my few and far between best traits. And I think a lot of designers could speak to that. And the reason is I just like to be a problem solver. And I think you were a problem solver. And if you're given an opportunity, and I used to talk to them and help them with other projects or other material. And I always told them, I don't care if it's my material or someone else's, I'm always willing to help. And I think there's plenty of other people in our industry that are the same way. And again, we're all trying to help, have a successful job.
Yeah. Shout out to the tile bar staff. We talk about that a lot.
It's huge.
You want to be the problem solver. If your client, no matter where they are on the spectrum, if they're the designer, the architect, or the installer, and they go, crap, what did I do with this goofy ass tile? And my name comes to mind, or Keith's name, or Matt's name, you've done your job. And even though Keith didn't supply this weird looking tile, if he can help me install it, I know that I'm going to get the first look at the next project or something like that. And that,
absolutely.
And that is just banking your future commissions and sharing your knowledge. And I talk about that a lot with my team.
Yeah. It's also being a good person and a good human. And I will, one quick last thing for you, since we were talking about projects that have been lost. Yeah. I am really glad that that this person we know named Matt is not on this call, because I might have done that to him, and he brings that up quite a bit. That goes many years back.
Matt, I'm sorry if he's on the show, and I don't know. But shout out to Matt Wass, a rock star in my opinion in the tile industry, and I've never met anybody that didn't like the guy. So.
Matt and I have been friends for probably 15, 16 years now. So
Me
there's no
also.
hard feelings.
And he is one of those that, hey, you and he both, I would call and say, have you ever heard of this? I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
And he would
Yeah.
always try to find me an answer, and so are you. Let me ask you a question. We started out as the factory, now switch hats to the distributor kind of role. What would you say in the distributor part of things that you would want people to know? For instance, you're a contractor, you're Tom Holt down there cutting the legs out of salespeople, trying to buy tile at the discount flooring center so that Keith can't get his commission. What would you say from a distributor's perspective that you would want the community to know, to say this, you're thinking about this wrong? What comes to mind first?
I guess if you're a contractor and you're trying to change something, let's say that, for instance, the only thing,
Okay.
as a distributor rep, and I'll use an architectural consultant, which I used to be called, which I love that versus just a rep.
Gotcha.
The only thing I would tell them or recommend they do is don't always go somewhere else. Even if you don't have a relationship with that person, is have a little empathy for them and respect for them and the work that they have done up front, and
Yes.
call them and say, look, I have a situation. I have no choice but to look elsewhere because the general contractor, because the owner, because the job is over budget. So what I'm doing is I'm coming to you first out of respect because you worked on this job up front. And I would like to give you an opportunity to come up with a plan B. Can you help me? Can we work together to do that? I that would go so far. And there's a lot of them that do that, but there's plenty of them that don't. And I think it's perception to where I think that person may think that there's no way they can do that because there are people, and I would be one of them. As soon as I get wind of that, I might be calling that designer. I might be calling, whomever, to try to stop that from happening. But that would be my one suggestion or recommendation, is to try to work with that person, because that is how they feed their family, and try to respect them. Versus just try to cut the project out from under them to make 20 cents a square foot.
I think that's a great word. And I'll just speak from my perspective. Early on, I didn't think that was, like you said, I didn't think that was possible, or I was nervous about upsetting the person. And I think it probably had to do early on, the reps. I was so much younger. When I started in the industry, I was 23. And the reps were, we think of, in our area, we think, Jim Owens, who is a just an icon in the industry in the Raleigh and North Carolina area. And I was like, I can't call Jim and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. So I think it was easier, and really it's passive aggressive. I would rather call Keith or Matt or whoever and say, hey, listen, there's something that's spec'd this way, and then just ignore Jim's phone calls because I was scared. But I found out as I grew up, and yes, I did grow up. Don't ask my wife. I did grow up. That I found out I would get a lot more traction if I, like you said, respected the spec, and for whatever reason. And most of the time, it didn't matter the reason I was calling and asking for whatever. Well, it could have been as simple, and I've done this before. Hey, listen, I'm in a bind. You wrote this spec. It's 2 years old. I'm in a bind. I'm getting pressure from the GC to cut something. I don't have the money in it to do it. Can you help? Let's try to work this out together. And I have gotten much farther and gotten many more projects that after that are higher margin, and information is key, and being honest and truthful pays off. You may lose a job or two, but it's gonna win down the road.
Yeah. And even if that happens, at least you made the phone call and the effort first. Yeah. And if I was that A&D rep on the other end of that call, and there was nothing I had, there was nothing else I could offer, I would at least respect that you picked up the phone and called me first to give me that first opportunity. And then I would also have that perspective, though, to understand what you did and say, look, you got to do what you got to do if you can find someone else. Or I might even say, hey, you should call this factory because they have something similar. Right. And that's a relationship that's going to last after that.
Absolutely.
And you will work together on other projects after that.
And you, I think it is, we have a lot of reps and consultants, as you like to call them, and that are just keyboard warriors, and they're not putting in the face time, and that is hard to get empathy and hard to get a relationship built across the internet. Face to face is key, and making somebody say no to you face to face, that's difficult. I mean, it because it happens to you. But if I have to go to my good friend Keith and say, Keith, I'm sorry I switched out your project. I know your kids. I know your wife. I don't want to do that. And if you're doing your job well, you should have no apprehension and going to the person that you work with and saying, man, it sucks. This is coming. I don't know how to fix it. We can either fix it together. I'm going to have to do something different. I hope you understand. That's a lot easier conversation than just being passive aggressive. And then you show up in the office 2 weeks later and go, how's my project XYZ going? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. They changed it to carpet. And I'm lying because you talk to the designer,
Exactly.
And information is key, and being open with that information. I think Tom, I didn't want to put you in a bad light. he only did it when something was done wrong. I understand that. Tom's a good guy, and he wouldn't cut anybody out too. He's honest, and he gives a 2 thumbs up for Jim Owens too. Icon in the industry. I hope he's doing well. If you know Jim Owens, thumbs up down in the comments below. Keith, we always do something on the program. We're going to kind of switch gears a little bit before we get moving, because we're just trucking right along. Most everybody knows out there, I'm the technical director for Tile Bar. So what happens on a day in and day out basis in my email box, I get flooded with different things. And as I get flooded with things, I find queries, which is a fancy word for questions, that I get from our staff as we try to answer them together. So I like to bring them online and see if the people out there, so all of you out there that call yourselves tile professionals, get ready. We're going to try to jump in.
Gosh.
Whoa. Hey, people out there, you got them, but I've got questions right here. Actual email from actual customers, customers. And I'm talking really fast today. I've taught 2 classes today, so my brain is on overload. I actually have a picture to go along with this. So here's the question, Keith. Now, John is, I don't know that he's gotten any wrong. So the pressure's on.
Great.
This is, and I'm going to pull up the picture after I read you the question. My client's installer needs assistance installing these tiles. He states that some sides of the tiles are jagged and handcrafted, and some sides are straight edged. I tried to explain to the homeowner that this is a tile with a handcraft look, and the grout joints will not be even, but the installer does not have any experience with these type of tiles and is trying to say something is wrong with the tile. So the question to you is, do you feel like anything is wrong with the tile? And let me give you some background on the tile. It is a hexagon tile, and I believe it's extruded. And here's a picture of his dry lay. He's dry laid out this 7-inch hex with an 1/8-inch spacer. And as you can see, he's got them pushed tight together in the middle. Kind of, it looks like the middle is where he started, and he's got some pretty significant gaps. So coming from a factory distributor type, Tom, I hope you're still on the line. Lou, I hope you're still out there, can give your opinion. What do you think is going on here?
I don't think that tile is rectified, and it's
It
not
is
supposed to
not
be on an eighth
rectified.
of an inch joint. So you would have to ask, what's the recommended joint, or what joint do I need to put this on to make that pattern work?
Right.
Because I know from being with a factory, most of those hexagons are not rectified.
Yep.
And you say an eighth of an inch joint, I would at least recommend a 3/16 inch joint. Now there is one piece that looks a lot out, but I
Yeah.
think if you start to spread those joints out, that will work.
Agreed. I think the way this product is made, you're right, it's not rectified, and I don't know that we personally have any rectified hexagons just because of the technology involved to do that and the cost. I don't know where they got an eighth of an inch from. It's obvious that not our necessarily our paperwork, but the way we represent it is a much larger grout joint. 3/16 I think is the minimum here. And I even reached out to the factory today to see if they had something larger. But I also think, and you tell me if this is possible or if this is just in my mind, obviously every tile is different. No tile is square, and all of them vary. We all are professionals. We understand that. With a hexagon, is it possible that the orientation of the hexagon itself could cause it to be off in more sections than others?
I mean, it's possible. I don't know the exact answer to that. I don't believe so, because they should be pressed,
Uh-huh.
and it shouldn't be different going one direction or the other unless it has a pattern to
I
it.
think these are, and we have a hexagon series that is extruded. And I'm not sure. I guess they extrude it square and then cut it.
Okay.
If I need to see that, it's a Spanish factory that does that. But and so I was thinking with that process, just thinking through, my Play-Doh time. When you extrude something, that's the only time I've ever extruded anything, is the little Play-Doh spaghetti maker. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Tell me in the comments. But when you extrude that, whatever it is, 7-inch layer of clay, and then it's on a conveyor belt and chop it into a hexagon, I would think there's a possibility the chops could be shorter than the extrusion. I don't know.
It's possible if those aren't pressed. Yeah. So I don't know that. And honestly, this goes back to our, what I was talking about, a factory making millions and millions of square feet. I have certainly seen things happen where there's issue with tile. So first thing is you spread that joint out to see if it's just that problem. And if there's more to that, then you take pictures, send them to the factory, and there could be an issue. It does happen when you're making millions and millions of square feet.
Yeah. And note out there to everybody. I mean, put this in your whatever, if you're taking notes or in your thing. Don't install it if you have question marks about it. Don't
Exactly.
do. I mean, I'm so thankful for Elsa's customer here. Shout out to Elsa for throwing that question in the mix. Thank you for doing a dry lay and a mock-up and then having questions. Because once you've installed it, it's too late. Tom has a couple of ideas here, and he's on the same page as us. Go with the bigger joint, coal. I'm not sure I know what coal is. Keith, you know what coal is?
I don't know what
pray is. That a pray?
I'm not sure.
But Tom, you're right. Mexican Satillo tile was man, that stuff varied big time. And I think that had
big joints,
half inch. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that probably has to do with the type of clay and how hot it's fired. He's saying coal, I guess, throw out the worst ones. So use those as cuts. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
But yes. So PSA announcement: if you have questions about the tile, don't install it. If you lose a day, that's fine.
To get more specific, Greg, don't install a single piece. There's a difference of installing a few pieces and a very difficult general contractor saying, well, I'm sorry, you accepted that substrate. than
Yeah.
installing the entire project. But yes,
Yeah.
do
Substrates
exactly
are a
what was in
whole
that
different
picture.
conversation, but yes.
Yeah.
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 Get up with your rep, get up with the person that you have a relationship with and say, and, don't be an asshole either. I had too much whiskey, but, cause it may be your fault.
Yes.
So let's approach the problem as a situation that, hey, let's work together and work it out. There is, it never helps to go in guns blazing and start pointing fingers, which
Yeah.
unfortunately the contracting industry has gotten a bad rap for. Well, I don't want to tell them that because they're going to, nobody should flip out. We're all,
Yeah.
like Keith said earlier, we're all trying to get together to get to the end of a project. And we're partners. We're partners in the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and that's on both sides though too, Craig. And that's one thing. Going back to perspective again for the last time, I'll try to say that I've had kickback from being on the factory side
Mm-hmm.
from my uppers at a factory because I've often sided with a tile contractor
Yeah.
because I've been in that situation and I understand what they're going through. And most of the time, a factory head is like, no, 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 it's acceptable or this is fine. So again, everybody has to be a team and work together.
Yeah. And it's, I hate those. And I think, fortunately, I don't have to deal with factories often. We have a whole team that does that, but I can see some of the email threads when I say, hey, we need to address this. And the immediate answer, I mean, they barely read the thread. Everything is fine. We checked it. I'm like, don't send me a boilerplate,
Yeah.
and I don't want my client to do that to me, and I don't want that to be done to us as a client. So, so the last point of perspective I wanted to ask you about, considering you've been in multiple different roles in the industry, and this is going to be controversial, so I'm sorry. Um, and I have my opinion. I'm not afraid to say it, but I want to hear yours first. Most of the failures come from blank.
Oh, it's easily 95 to 99% installer error.
Gosh, I
We
know.
we know that.
I
We know
know,
that.
but I don't want it to be true so bad.
It it shouldn't be true, but you know that tile installation is not electrical work.
Right.
There's a very different standard there, and anyone can pick up a bucket and trowel and say that, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years and I know what I'm doing. But yes, if you and I both know several different setting material manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
All of those people are way smarter than us, and they all make great material
Yep.
for every type of product that we make. And if you read the directions or you listen to them or you get them to help you, that product will work with our tiles or with another manufacturer's tile.
Yeah.
So typically, and installers, they'll fight the battle of, well, this was designed wrong, and you may be right with that as well. So there
Odds
are
are not. You're
different.
not though.
Yeah, well, in commercial jobs, there are a lot of times, and this goes back to us trying to help with specifications.
Uh-huh.
To where an architect or a spec writer, I mean, gosh, I feel bad for them because they're trying to specify multiple different facets of that project. They're
Yeah.
not tile experts.
Yeah.
But why not bring in a tile expert and get your job done right? But
Develop
yeah,
the right
that's
relationships to do, yes, to do your job correctly.
yeah,
I
but yeah, it's
I talk to my team often about margin, and margin is something that I like to not work in if possible. And I say that this thin set, millions of dollars have been spent to develop this thin set. And it's a very complex chemistry project that you're doing when you take a bag of thin set and a bucket of water and put them together to make it sticky.
yeah,
Yes, if you short the water a liter or half a liter or whatever, is it going to fail? Probably not, because they've built in margin. But why work in that margin when you don't have to? when they've already tested it, it already works. And if you'd follow the stupid, there's not even words anymore. It's all diagrams. And I was so not disappointed. And I think I knew it down deep in my heart. But when I came on the tile bar and I was like, how are all these things failing? Well, these people are out there just installing crap. They don't have any idea what they're doing. And my biggest pet peeve is people not putting movement joints in backsplashes. Man, why does my backsplash crack? Well, you have a glass tile that you paid $50 a square foot for, installed directly tight to a granite countertop, goes tight to your cabinets, and your 4-year-old's jumping on it every day to get some cereal. Why is it not going to crack? So yes, your answer is the same as mine, unfortunately.
It is the unfortunate truth.
Yeah. No. Tom says no one reads the bags or buckets.
Exactly.
And that is so true. And so yes, I think from everybody's perspective, outside of the one installer on the project that fails that swears he did it right, we know it's your fault. Just do it right. Just read the instructions. Do it right. I never thought I'd have some of the conversations that I have today. I mean, even this week, and I don't. Well, it's a whole nother subject, and we're almost out of time, so I won't get into it. But Keith, thank you for the conversation about perspective. I think that you're a unique individual because you've worn so many hats and advanced yourself enough to where you can see that. But also, I know you're logical enough and honest enough that. Like you said, you can go to the factory and say, hey, I know what the installer's going through and they shouldn't have to. We should change this. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty on that.
Sure. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. Keith asked what factory you're not Keith. You're Keith. Lou asked what factory you're working for. I don't know if you want to say or not.
No, it's fine. Of course, it's public. I mean, people can know it. So I
guess you are. It's not like you're hidden anywhere.
No. So I'm my title is a national account manager, and I'm with American Only and Marazzi on the independent distribution side. So I don't deal with a lot of the standard customers that we have across the country. I deal with a lot of strategic accounts. I also go into Canada and have different things going on behind the scenes. But A.O. Marazzi, that's who I'm with.
A.O. Marazzi. Now, Tom, I think you and I talked about him a little bit ago. He says, I remember him from somewhere. Yeah. I don't, did we all work together at the same time, or were you with Mosaic when Tom was with us?
It depends where he was. But yeah, I think he was there a little bit when I was there.
Yeah. I think he's. I don't know. He spent some time in Florida, but some time in.
That's right. Yeah. I think he was in Florida maybe when I was there because that was the boom down in Florida.
Were you estimating at that time, or were you in project management? Didn't you start in estimating?
I'd come back, estimating with Joe, and then as kind of like the individual role that you had, where I was estimating and PM.
Okay, doing the kind of one-stop shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Was never a better quarry tile than AO's ground edge. There you go.
Oh, if you want to get into a whole nother conversation, we need another hour and a couple more beers if you want to talk about quarry tile.
Hey, I'm up for it, but my wife's probably not. When he says Joe, he means Joe Kim. Shout out to Joe Kim. Yep. I haven't talked to that joker in a couple of years. I hope he's doing well. Joe Kim taught me how to estimate.
Joe is one of my mentors as well.
Absolutely.
Great guy, long history. Yep.
He loved to eat lunch, and I would eat lunch, and we would also leave the office at 4 sometimes, don't tell anybody, and go play golf. He loved to play golf.
He loved to play golf. Yes, he did.
Let's see. I've got your information. Hey, Keith, thanks for being here. This is the Tile Happy Hour. We talk about anything and everything tile. Keith is with AO and Marazzi. If you want to email him and tell him how hot he is in his pink shirt, there's his email address. I see something just came across here. Where is it? Starred comments. I'm looking at it. John. Okay. So John says, sorry, he can't be with us. He's at an industry event and wishes everybody well. So, we hope John is doing well. Slacker. Like I said, we'll figure out a way, Keith, to get you his pay for tonight. And, once again, I thank you for being here. Thanks everybody. If you're watching, live, do whatever you do, go to bed. If you're not watching live, make sure you leave us a comment. Tell us what your perspective is in the tile and stone industry. I still have a lot more comments I could do, and I'd love to share them. But make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're on whatever channels you are on. We should be back next week. I think we're gonna have a special episode next week because John and I both will be together live. So we'll see how that goes. So stay tuned for that. But just remember, we're always talking about the tile and stone industry. Don't ever forget to keep learning, and we'll learn together. Be kind to each other and tile the world.